Dabado Puzzles is one of the most uniquely Marmite gaming experiences that I've had in recent memory. It's a hardcore puzzle game, but it markets itself as a calm and relaxing puzzle game, and I'm not sure you can quite have both at the same time. Very difficult to do. But this game has some great core gameplay mechanics and then throws in some RNG elements that absolutely make you want to scream. So let's dive in. The skinny version of describing Dabado Puzzles for me is Pipe Mania versus Tricky Towers, with some chime and Tetris elements thrown in for good measure. The game sees you needing to collect keys or certain collectibles on the game screen, and you do this by building towers almost like branches out of a tree. You have 3 different types of blocks to do this. You've got a heavy block, which is like your root base foundation, and this gets placed somewhere on the floor, and the floor is kind of dotted out with white and red dots. Where you place this is hugely key to your strategic focus for where you then want to build your branches, because after that comes the medium blocks, and these largely resemble letters of the alphabet. So you've got H's, Y's, I's and S's, and they will come down from the top of the screen and you can flip them. Sometimes with a power-up you can rotate them too, but it doesn't last for long. And in doing this, you'll start to build out weird and wonderful branches everywhere. So long as the edges kind of hit together, they'll stay. There's like no particular gravity here. It's just building stuff up in a weird and wonderful stacking game. As you branch outwards, you'll be collecting points from the yellow bits that are around the screen that you'll be collecting, as well as power-ups or additional blocks with the plus signs that you've got too. But you'll always be looking for this key or various different other objects as you go. The key is normally your main focus and you need to get that to complete the level. Everything else that you collect that's a collectible is an optional extra, but they're not really optional, it's just depending on whether or not you think you can go for it or not. Because if you don't hit the key, you fail the level entirely. So it doesn't matter if you get all 3 collectibles, you're like, I've ruined it for myself, if you don't then get back to the key. The third and final block that helps you do a lot of this is the light block. Now these are like leaves or cacti, and you can place them on top of all of the different blocks or pipes, as I started to think of them as, so that you can then kind of cap them off. But they're very handy because they're chunky and they can collect things like in a wave around them, so it's very handy to have. Your block limit is very tight, and you can see what you've got and the types of things that you've got in the top right hand side of the screen. But they will descend down in any order that they fancy after the fact that you get a heavy block to start with, because that's your foundation. And this is the crux of why Dabado Puzzles is hard and tricky, but also why it's extremely frustrating as hell. Because the order of how they come down means that I would say 4 times out of 5, you're often left in a state where you can only either just go for your end goal if you're in a key level, or if you're in the additional kind of more unique levels where it wants you to collect things like roses, diamonds, jewels, letters, and scrolls. Those types of things mean that you're often, because they're put in the most awkward places on the map, you're going to fail, and you know you're going to fail up front. And so like an example of this would be that you might need to be able to hit something that is right down low on the level, but the game will spawn out 3 logs straight out of the bat, which go straight up. So if you place them down on your base block, you're going to go past where you need to go. So you're like, right, I'm not going to do that. So you can choose to discard them by just letting them drop down out of the screen underneath. But the problem with that is that normally your exit, like final thing that you need to collect is quite up high. But now you've just wasted those 3 big blocks because you can't put them anywhere and use them then. And so you get put into this awkward loop of having to dispose stuff that you can't use up front there and then, or trying to make the best of a bad job, or thinking, do you know what, this hasn't worked out for me, and you have to make that decision really early on in a level so that you can then build to your exiting key or the diamond or whatever it is that you're going for, so that you can try and make the best of a bad job. And that feels like it wastes the player's time, and I'll explain why. Your ability to open up new levels comes from another currency called light. Light is given to you when you complete a level and get a certain score by collecting all of those gold things that you could see on the screen. How you collect those gold things has various different multipliers to them, but your score is almost always really quite small. So you can, if you say you collect a couple of things at once with one block, then that's a multiplier. There's also a cool thing called symmetry, which means that if you build out literally as a mirror image one side to the other, you'll get a multiplier that way too. But a lot of these things go by the wayside because it's the difference between you getting, say, 2 light or 3 light. So you kind of think, well, this feels really arbitrary. Why am I trying so hard for this? But if you know that you're going to fail a level and you quit out, you lose 10 light. If you just fail the level entirely, you lose 1 light. So it incentivizes you just to sit there and watch your blocks drop by aimlessly so that you don't get penalized as heavily as what you could do if you just quit out from the game. But the players that know that they failed because the RNG have screwed them over, you get penalized for going, oh, sod it, I need to get going again now. And it feels really, really disrespectful to the player and their time and the way how this game is structured to make you grind and grind and grind and repeat and repeat and repeat and then be on the ball and know that you're on the ball when everything aligns so that you can then make good and cool structures. And then obviously if you bugger up that one, then you're thinking, no! And that's where the extreme frustration of Dabado Puzzles comes in. And that is such a shame because I think the fundamentals to this game and the fundamental gameplay mechanics of this kind of weird and wacky building structures, I think is unique, fun, interesting, and they do lots of things with it as well. There's collections called unique levels where, like one, for example, has got like a light shape that goes around it, and a bit like the keep your blocks under certain height in Tumble, or by placing things inside a playing area in Chime, you have to keep all of these blocks inside the light area whilst still getting to your goal. So it really incentivizes cramming stuff in together and having to kind of, again, make the best of a bad job. And that's fantastic. And I love all of these different ways and variants of them playing around with things. But it's totally undermined by a narcissistic RNG facility, which then rubs salt into the wounds personally from me as a gamer by all of the promotional blurbs saying this game is intentionally random, intentionally hard. That's life. I don't feel like that sits well with me, having now played this for several hours as a player, understanding the mechanics, but also understanding that some of these things end up being exceptionally futile. I don't want to make the best of a bad job. I want to be given a fair chance so that I can make something or make the best of a situation, get something out of it, and know that I'm progressing in a game. So yeah, that's why I think Dabado Puzzles is one of the most Marmite gaming experiences I've had, certainly in puzzle games for many a year, but just in gaming in general, because there's a great game in here being absolutely saddled with some interesting design issues. So yeah, I think this game will appeal to quite a few hardcore puzzlers. Just know going in, it's designed to be a huge time sink for you, and you need to be prepared to replay those same levels over and over and over again to grind the light to then be able to progress. A written review will be over on highplanegames.com. If you found this interesting or informative, please do drop us a like or a comment below and let us know how you get on with the game if you pick it up. Cheers all. Bye. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.